I apologize for being late. We were held up with that other meeting in the other room. My name is Phil Curran. I'm the chairman of the ad hoc committee. Councilman Rotella and Councilman Stanley are also on the committee. Also in attendance are Councilman Don Taylor, Wayne Perkins, Joe Cabo, Ben Chenise, ex officio. Also present is Mayor Boughton, Mark Haskell, Carl from the library, and I thought Rick Kwanzaa was going to be here, but I don't see Rick yet. And I think David's out of town. David?
I had definitely.
But Dan, are you here for David? Yeah. Okay. Dan Garrett is here for Dave Sano.
I'm here too.
Oh, Charlie, I'm sorry. Charlie, Councilman. The reason I guess we've been assigned to this committee is because of the problem with the removal of the book deposit boxes from the park on West Street. No one seemed to know why at the time, and I'm gonna ask the mayor to open it up and give what he can tell us what's going on, and we'll take it from there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will give you a brief history of the Dropbox drama. Here's the sort of the nuts and bolts of what happened. For many years, Kirky Barnes, who works in our public buildings department, would empty the boxes when they were located on the median on West Street. He would empty them in the morning, he would empty them in the night. Now, generally, I would drive by there and I would see Kirky emptying the boxes, but I was not fully aware that this was one of his duties of every day. And I have to tell you, I think it's sort of strange that we have a custodian who doesn't, his responsibilities within the senior center and a little bit of the library to emptying the drop boxes, but that's a whole other discussion. Kirky, unfortunately, got very sick this summer and has been out on long-term disability and will be there, unfortunately, for I think for a while. So once that happened, it became apparent that there was a challenge to getting the boxes empty. The issue being that the library staff, not the admin staff, but rank and file folks, and let me be clear, there are 57 employees at the Danbury Public Library. A, felt that they didn't have the time to be able to empty the boxes, and B, felt that it was dangerous to cross the street and to actually empty the boxes and then carry stuff back twice a day. Faced with that challenge, the management team, through Mark Haskell, our director, came up with the alternative of moving the boxes from where they are to the other side of the building where the Union Savings Bank, lack of a better term, entrance is, with the objective of, one, conditioning people that long term, within the next, say, 2 to 3 years, will be using the bank drive-through drive up as a source to be able to drop off your materials. And B, make it easier for staff to go and empty the boxes. And the boxes would be locked during the hours of operation for the library, assuming that if you can walk in to get your books, you should be able to walk in to drop off your books, since most people drop off and pick up a new round. So they, both Mark and Michelle, presented this idea to me. It seemed to make logical sense, and so we proceeded to move the drop boxes. Subsequent to that, people, most of the patrons in general got upset because the boxes had been moved. I will, in defense of the management team at the library, say that there was a tremendous amount, and with the library board, a tremendous amount of notification given. It was posted prominently on the website, which people used significantly. There were signs that were posted for several weeks prior to the boxes being absolutely moved, but like anything else, you sort of take things for granted, and when it's not there, you realize it's not there, and holy cow, what happened? Folks were understandably concerned about it, raised issues to the library board, to Mark. I received probably 3 or 4, maybe half a dozen complaints to my office. Some of you folks were contacted as well, I'm sure, during that process. Paul, or some members of actually Paul, I'm not picking up Paul, Paul put it on the agenda for discussion. During that time period, Mark and I had also been talking about, are there any other alternatives that we could do to try to mitigate some of the concerns of the public, but also recognize some of the concerns of the library staff in terms of timing and safety. And we came up with the alternative of taking one of the boxes and moving it back over to the Library Plaza entrance. And the staff has agreed that it will be open during the hours of operation for the library, and that they would empty it twice a day, which they did. And I think it was moved about midweek last week, maybe the week prior to that. I can't remember which.
And I believe it was last Tuesday.
Last Tuesday. I went over there myself on the first day and emptied the library box myself personally to just practice it. And it was, filled with, wasn't full, it was probably maybe 20 or 30% full, but there was plenty of room in it. And to talk to some of the staff, and they seem pretty comfortable with the current setup. So as of tonight, one of the library bids drop boxes has been restored. It's not, though, adjacent to the street. I, for many years, have had concerns about, and have actually been in situations where people have tried to pull up to the drop box because they don't want to have to get out of the car, and folks have been queued up in the line there at the light or trying to park, and it's created sort of a somewhat chaotic situation in there. So that's the only really difference now, is that the drop box is on the same side as the library, and you do have to get out of your car and walk up to the drop box and put your material in there to return. And that's kind of where we're at tonight.
Now, I was under the understanding that there was going to be a sign posted that there would be 5-minute parking. Is that true or no?
Yeah, we were working on doing that. That may not be up yet, though. Chief, I was just down there an hour ago.
I don't think it's up, but it's going to be.
Yes.
No, I was in touch with the appropriate people, and it's being worked on. It's being painted, created.
Yeah. I don't think it's up yet, though. But that's the idea, is you can, park, leave your car idling, drop your stuff off, and away you go. So we are conditioning the public, because we do intend on having the Union Savings Bank site that's moving forward, and I expect a contract shortly as per our public hearing and the vote of the council. That's moving along quicker than I even anticipated. So those 2 boxes will still stay on that side, because eventually you're going to be able to drive up on the bank side and put your stuff in the bin and use a drive-up, sort of like a drive-up teller or drive-up library situation. That's the vision that we want to do.
Go ahead, Ken.
And this is to Mr. Askar. Are you happy? That's kind of a wide open question.
Certainly. Probably. The number of complaints that we've gotten, because in my 4 years as director, this is by far the most upsetting thing to the library customers, much more so than being closed on Friday was. The number of complaints has dropped dramatically, even before we moved the box to the plaza entrance. And I was checking with our head of lending services today, and she said that each day there are more items being returned in that drop at the plaza entrance. The staff is used now to emptying the drops before we open up in the morning, the 2 that remained at the Bank Street entrance. And so far they've been doing fine with emptying it twice from the plaza entrance. We haven't heard many comments from people about whether they like that or not, or whether they find it convenient or not, but it's only been there a week. I'm pleased that the number of items being put in that drop is increasing. So the staff has adjusted to it well. I still can't answer how the public feels about it.
I did check, Mr. Chairman, I did check with 311 in my office. Since we moved the boxes, we haven't had any complaints or anything.
Mr. Rotello, you have something?
Yeah, Mr. Curran and Mr. Mayor, I think I could speak for 2 of the 3 cohorts that are most concerned with where the boxes are located.
I'm sorry.
Christine Rotello.
R-O-T-E-L-O, Chris.
Christine Rotello, 42 Pleasant Street, Danbury, Connecticut.
Thanks so
I
much.
think the 3 cohorts that are most involved in this are young parents with children. And one of the problems that they face is that you're not allowed in Danbury, or I think maybe anywhere in the country, to get out of your car and leave your kids in their seats and walk out and even walk around the car to plunk your books into a thing, into a whatever. You can't even mail your letters by walking out of the car. You have to get the kids out of those car seats by law, unbuckle them, put them in your arms, pick up the freaking books, put your shoulder bag on, and carry them around and go through this whole rigmarole. Whereas if the drop boxes were where they originally were, on the driver's side, you can simply open your window or at the most open your car and stick your leg out and do it. Now, my cohorts are two. One is handicapped people and the other is the elderly. And the problem that I have is that I never take my books back when it's raining, snowing, sleeting, or whatever. So I always took my books back when I could just take them to that median park thing that we have there and open the door if I had to, put my foot out and drop my stuff back in there. And when I get books out of the library, I always go when it's good weather. Now I understand that there was a problem that people saw was when they had to take the carts down from the library and bring them down into the street, but what they didn't seem to realize is that there was an apron at the end of the driveway between the professional building and the library land. You can just take the carts down, roll them down the apron, cross the little street, and go to the three drop box places. So there is really no rational reason why they get them on that place where they always were. It worked so well for all of us. It was absolutely wonderful. I will never return my books in a drop box that's over on the right-hand side on the library plaza. Never. I will not open the door, walk into the line of traffic, sleet, snow, or whatever, walk around, get myself killed, and drop myself. Ever. Never, ever, ever. And nor will anybody that I would do that. So that's like a no, nothing. You will never do that. That is a bad, bad idea. Everybody I've talked to in the last 2 days has said, are these people crazy? Why not put them right where they were before? It's just an insane idea.
Mr. Chairman, if I might address Ms. Rotell's concerns.
Go ahead, Mayor.
And I appreciate her concerns. I think one of the issues was, from the existing staff, was a concern of they having to cross the street, ramp or no ramp, that there's a potential safety situation in terms of being able to get across there. Now, that begs the question that for years, Kirky did it and never complained about a potential safety issue, but nonetheless, I think that's something that we'd have to look at in terms of asking anybody else to do it. And so the idea of putting it on one side was so that you don't have an employee in the middle of the street with a cart of books. So that was one issue raised by the staff that I thought was somewhat valid, and certainly understanding that we are not every library in Connecticut has a drop off at all. We did a survey, and some libraries very close to us don't even have the luxury of being able to drop off your books into a drop box. So we felt that this was a pretty fair compromise, if you will, on a thorny situation. With all due respect to Ms. Rotell.
Go ahead.
I had requested this ad hoc, along with the members of the Democratic Caucus, to explore ways of returning the drop boxes to the original location. And I think we're all fairly aware of why the drop boxes were removed from that location. But from my point of view as a member of the council who has to approve these expenditures, it was important to me, after exploring these issues with my constituents, to see if we couldn't get them back. We know that we don't have to, and we know that libraries that are adjacent to us don't have this, although I should point out that Ridgefield is at present exploring the possibilities of adding a drive-up drop-box to their facility. They would have had it already, but they have a parking issue. The location that they've chosen for their drop-box would require removing a couple of parking spaces, and the Ridgefield Library parking is tight. So they're working that out. But it would seem to me that in the next year or two, we will have libraries in adjacent communities that have drop boxes, drive-up drop boxes. That's the difference here. I spent a few minutes on Google just to respond to some of these comments that we've heard in the last couple of days that nobody has these. And people do have them. Troy, Michigan has one. Washington, Illinois has one. They say that all materials from either library except magazines may be returned in these drive-up drop boxes at any time. Maryland, Ohio, Washington State. One thing that's interesting, if you happen to go home tonight and Google library drop boxes, is that iTunes, we're all familiar with Apple and their fabulous programs, has in the iTunes software a thing called Dropbox, which is a way of managing their music library. So when you Google Dropbox library, you wind up with lots of hits for Apple. So it makes it very difficult to find out actual drive-up, physical, old-fashioned books and mortar library stuff, but it's out there, you can find it. A couple of responses to the questions of safety. It would seem to me, since the patrons are the ones who are underwriting this entire operation, and this edifice, our salaries, or not, as the case may be, asking them to give up some of their safety is sort of a Faustian bargain. I mean, clearly, if this is not safe enough for professional librarians to jockey carts around once a day, it certainly can't be safe for moms to be juggling kids and elderly and the aged and infirm to be doing this and crossing the street. We all know, at least those of us who have used these boxes on a pretty regular basis, that there is a line of cars on the left-hand side at the previous location, the original location. And you would very often be the second or third car in a line of people parked at these boxes to use this facility. And it might take someone a minute or 90 seconds to get all the books in the box. You see this particularly with moms. I don't mean to be sexist, but it just seems like the soccer mom with the kids, the aisle of kids' material will be at the box. The little girl's helping her mom, handing stuff over the back seat and all that. And they get these in the machine, and then they take off, and you're up next, and you go. If you had to add 5 or 6 or 7 minutes to that process for these people to park their cars and then walk across to the library to use the box at the library, if it's open during the day, the line of cars that are queuing up on West Street would be probably 10 times what it would be at the worst for the drop boxes. And I never saw more than 2 or 3 cars, so I think we could expect to see a dozen or so backing up into the oncoming traffic on West Street. That's clearly, I don't want to go down there. I mean, I would rather not see the library drop box in the library plaza open during the day at all. If it means I'm going to be watching people juggling West Street and cars backing up into traffic and that kind of stuff. Cost obviously is always an issue, and it's a consideration that's probably paramount right now. I've done some back of the envelope quick calculations, and I'm a little bit disappointed that the finance director here, but Dan is here, and he could help me out on this if he needs to jump in. I've spoken to Human Resources, and they've told me that the crossing guards are hired through the Human Resources Department and paid about $10 an hour, even though they're managed by the police department. And they work in general about an hour a day. And it would seem to me that in the morning we could have a crossing guard who finishes his shift at 9 o'clock, say at Park Avenue School, and offer the position if they'd like to make some extra money, to do that morning empty of the boxes. And then we could use a high school student or something similar in the afternoon. And whether we pay them for the full hour, because I don't think it's actually going to take an hour, it's probably more like a half hour if you're young and healthy and strapping. But let's say that we pay them for the full hour. We're looking at minimum wage, maybe $8 or $9. We're looking at somewhere in the vicinity of $15 to $20 a day to do this, and you multiply that by 7, and you come up with a figure of somewhere between, say, $100 to $140 a week. And on the low end at $100, we're talking about perhaps $5,000 a year, and at the high end, $140. I don't think it would be that high.
Can
We're
I
looking,
just interrupt
sure,
for a second?
yep,
Are you talking about having these boxes on West Street?
where they used to be.
Where they used to be, so we're gonna hire, you're thinking about hiring high school kids?
Yeah, I'm
To
exploring.
cross the street, that's dangerous. To go over there and, I mean, because we have 57 employees at the library, and not one of the employees that works at the library thinks it's safe enough to cross the street.
I think I mentioned a crossing guard, Colleen, and I think if anybody in Danbury knows how to handle traffic and standing at an intersection would be a crossing guard, correct?
I
No?
can't believe that we've come to this, that we have come to this.
Are you saying that a crossing guard shouldn't be standing at an intersection?
I'm saying that I can't believe that we're talking about the safety of people crossing the street, something that people do every single day. People that get out of their cars on Main Street to go visit a store, should we have a crossing guard so they can get out of their car?
Okay, wait, no.
Out of
Wait,
their driver's
okay,
side?
okay.
I mean, where are we going with this?
Wait. I got you, okay. Here's where I was going with this. The idea is to offload the job from the library staff to someone else. let's say that the library staff, for whatever reason, is incapable of performing this function.
Why? There's 57 employees.
But I have been told repeatedly by
Excuse me,
library
excuse me,
staff that
excuse me
they
for a
can't.
second.
Sure.
Now,
Mr. Chairman?
given the discussion these two are having,
Yes.
where do we stand with the union on this? Isn't this what the problem was the union wouldn't allow their people to go across the street? And now they're gonna hire somebody else to come in now. Is the union gonna allow that to happen?
We didn't get a response to the question about whether DMEA members would be allowed to empty the drop since it wasn't in their job description. We asked at the very beginning of this process, and we still don't have an answer to that question.
I think, Mr. Chairman, the issue is that the members of the collective bargaining unit there feel that crossing that street twice a day with a bundle of books in your hands is dangerous. The staff is saying that. And I'm not so sure I don't agree with them. And if I had known Kirky, if he had come to me and said, Mark, I'm not comfortable crossing the street twice a day, there's people speeding, there's people flashing lights, people don't stop, I would have said, you're right. I mean, it seems that there's just a recipe for an issue there for the staff, not for the folks dropping their books. So I don't think you should necessarily discount that. Although and I certainly wouldn't want to put a high school kid out there now that the staff has said we're concerned that there's a potential, because it's the first time there's a problem, they're going to say, well, you were warned, Mayor, that people raise a potential issue here, and you hired somebody anyways, or an elderly crossing guard to go out there. No disrespect to Paul. And we actually looked at hiring a part-time person. We said, why don't we just hire a part-time person at $10 an hour to go do this? And it was the staff that said, look, don't hire anybody. Our concern is safety. Put it on the library side. We'll get it empty twice a day. It was them that came to us with this suggestion. So,
But I got to respond to Colleen, because I'm confused about that.
yeah, I think, Colleen, when you were confused about,
Right.
Paul wasn't saying
I wasn't saying we were going to hire a
guard.
crossing guard so that people,
Yeah,
to
no,
stop
I
the traffic.
understand. No,
We were going to hire a crossing guard
Right.
because they're working in the morning, finishing at 9 o'clock, and then to empty the machine and service the machines.
Right, right.
We've got these.
Hire a crossing guard
Right.
so that the people can do their work? Is
No.
that what are you
No,
talking
no,
about?
no.
Just
get the
books.
Go
We
get
have to
the
hire a crossing guard to empty the boxes.
The crossing guard himself will be the one.
Exactly.
He'll have his vest on.
Exactly.
And he can cross
He finishes at Park
cautiously,
Avenue.
because he's professional. Crosswalker.
Well, let's just say, he finishes at Park
Okay.
Avenue.
That's all I
9
wanted
o'clock.
to, I got it.
He's interested in a park.
Get a
crossing guard.
You've got a new position opening up. He finishes
He's a
at 9
professional.
o'clock.
I got
He
it.
goes to West Street, empties the boxes.
This is comical.
That's what was going on with that. There's one other issue here, and the issue is, I think,
That's bad.
putting aside convenience to the patrons and stress on the staff, there's another issue that we need to look at, and that is the frequency of returning materials based on convenience. If by having these machines in their past position, we increase the amount of material that are returned, or we decrease the length of time the materials are out. And I know that from personal experience that I will often, when we have the old machines, return DVDs and books much sooner than they were due. Even before I would go to the library, I would put them in my car. On the off chance I was going down West Street, I could put them right in a slot. We need to look at, if that's the case, and it is the case, and I suspect it's the case with most people, by increasing the frequency of turnover of these library materials, periodicals, DVDs, expensive books, are we actually saving money in acquisition costs? And if we are saving money in acquisition costs, then it is possible to, let's say, use a part-timer to empty these machines at $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 a year. The cost may actually be less than that, because by increasing the frequency of turnover, we are saving ourselves acquisition costs down the road. That is a financial factor. We're always asking staff, and our constituents are asking us to do more with less. If we can actually save on acquisition costs, if we saved one book a day, by the way, if we didn't have to buy one book per day, it would more than pay for this program. I mean, I'm not sure that by having these items returned 10 days earlier, we actually are saving one book a day. It wouldn't surprise me if we were saving 3 or 4 a week. And you would lower that price from 3,000 or 4,000, whatever it happens to be, by using, let's say, a crossing guard. And I put the idea of a crossing guard out there because we have them, and they're always looking for more work. That $3,000 or $4,000 figure may drop down to $1,500. And then we contrast that with the $500,000, the $1 million that we spent on the HVAC system. we contrast that with the $30 or $40 or $50,000 that we spent on the automated terminals. And this seems to me like a very cheap way of maintaining a very positive relationship with the patrons of the library. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'd like to respond to Mrs. Stanley's comment and add something to the mayor's description of the history. One of the issues, in addition to the safety of crossing the street, is that the process involves taking like a flatbed cart that has two really tall, big plastic bins on it, and all the contents of the 3 drops used to be put into those 2 bins. So it was very heavy to get it back across the street. That's one of the reasons why we're concerned. That's an additional reason why we're concerned about having current staff members, because with the exception of maybe 6 of us, the whole staff is female, and many of them are older women as well. So there was the fact that it was a physical task that could be hard for some people. What I wanted to add to the mayor's description was that on the weekends, when Kirky Barnes did not empty them, Custom Care, which is also the cleaning service for the library and City Hall and other city buildings, they had been doing it for many years. When Kirky was able to work, Custom Care was doing it 7 days a week. And that's one of the reasons why Public Buildings ran out of money and told us that we had to relocate the drops.
How much was it to have them do it?
They were paid $18.50 each time, so $37 a day.
How much was it for the year?
It would have been, they didn't do it for a whole year, but it would have been just under $13,000, $12,922.
I wish, and this is going to be a comment, I wish that I could come up with 10 more ways to save Danbury that kind of money. I feel that, I can see that it's obviously an inconvenience for some of the patrons that use the library, but I feel it's a temporary inconvenience because we will eventually be having a drive-up window in the near future. And we do have right now something that has been working. Am I right in saying that we have the drop box? You haven't had very many complaints. I mean, we're never ever going to make everybody 100% happy, no matter what. And I just think that, and I really wish that the city of Danbury people would take into consideration that, you know, this is a minor thing. Down the road, we're going to start to see larger things happening, and you know, we need to really get a grip on things. You know, bite the bullet. I mean, this to me is, and I don't want to make it lightly. I had 4 children. I brought them all to the library, in and out, picked up the books, went home, read the books, brought them back in. It's part of the experience of the library is having your kids go into the library. I don't even think you should take that from them. They should all be in the library, going to story hour and participating in what's going on in the library. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I feel really bad because there's so many people here that really care about this Dropbox, but I think it's something that you're going to see down the road. Many, many, many important issues that are going to start arising that we have to start, you know, biting the bullet. And this is probably going to be the first. And that's my comment.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Candace Milligan, 30 Old Antrim Road. I'm just wondering if anyone's assessed the liability of the city should someone be either walking through the courtyard, going up to that drop box at night, and something happens, God forbid, a rape or something like that. The city has approximately caused that situation. And or behind the library, the 2 temporary boxes that were moved from West Street back then. I think those are both huge liabilities on the city, and should unfortunately something happen, it's going to be much more than $13,000 for the city to pay that person. In addition, I believe it was Mrs. Rotello who addressed the concern of, it's called risk of injury when you leave your child in the car and walk away from it. That's a felony. Any mother who needs to get out of the car, or father, get out of the car, walk up to the library and deposit their books or DVDs, they're going to be on the hook for that felony. And that's a serious concern. Those are just practical concerns.
I'd just like to say something. I was going to try to stay neutral on this, but I knew I couldn't. The wisest person I know is my wife. And I've been discussing this with my wife for a couple days. And my wife raised 8 children. She took all of them to the story hours, every 3-4 times a week. Sometimes parked on Deer Hill Avenue, sometimes parked on Foster Street. There was no parking that we know of, like we know now. And she'd be down to the library, she'd take them in the library, they'd get their books, they'd go home, they'd bring the books back. Now, I know it's a convenience to have the drops there. But, man, I'll tell you, went in to get them, this is what I can't understand is, everybody tells us that we're, like me, I'm overweight, I need exercise. We're supposed to exercise, but now we went in to get the books, but now we don't want to walk them back into the library. We don't want to get the exercise. We want to be able to drop more. Everything is a convenience today.
That's not
Now, I
easy.
appreciate what Mr. Rotella is saying, because there are some handicapped people. But like Colleen said, man, we're looking at a budget year this year that you people, you can't even conceive what we're looking at. And this is peanuts compared to what we're looking at. And I can just see what we're going to be going through, the committees that we're going to be looking at in the next 3 or 4 months. If you people think that this is a disaster, we're all in for a big awakening.
There's an answer for everything. You said that you can't get out of your car because it's a felony, okay? If you can't go and you're afraid that maybe if you go at night, you can be raped. You can go in the daytime. There's
There
plenty
are
of
working
times.
mothers. I myself leave town at 7:30 in the morning, and I return hopefully by 7 o'clock at night.
When do you
in
get
my-
the books?
On a Saturday.
Okay.
I know,
A
usually I
Saturday
try and go on a
afternoon?
Saturday. But if things are due on Tuesday, I mean, this is just a practical concern. I do like Paul said he does. I leave them in the car, and hopefully when I drive by West Street, I'm like, oh, got the books. Let me throw them in the book drop so they're not late. I mean, this is a serious concern.
I'll give you twice a day for $5,000. No, I just figured it out, it's a car payment, $420 a month.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just address the issue of risk, that was brought up, and again, there's risk in everything you do in life. There's, I could have, God forbid, Kirky walking across West Street, get hit by a car. That's a risk. And there's probably more likelihood of somebody getting hurt crossing the street with a bundle of books. I'm talking about a huge car, not a couple of books in their hand, than there would be somebody getting hurt dropping off a book at Library Plaza. I'm not, you can't ever say never, but there's no way to assess that.
We can't make
And
sure
the
that
city is at no
everybody's
greater or no lesser liability because of that. It's simply, I'm not dismissing the concern, but I'm saying that, overall, I don't necessarily think that's, the major issue here. You have, I think, a greater risk of somebody pulling up, trying to put the book in, somebody renting them, and things that never happened, because it's been there since 1999, 1998, but could have the potential to happen when you really think about it. I've seen people leave the car in the middle of the queue, not get in the parking spot, and for the light, open the door, leave their car door open, run over, throw their book in, and then hope they catch the light to get back in the car to get going on the
Are we
green light.
responsible for that too?
No.
Potentially, they could say we located the Charlie's
Where does
risk
it
assessment.
end?
That is,
I've seen people do it. I mean,
But I will tell you, I just went to the tree lighting ceremony over at Library Plaza. In my walk from there to here, I was asked by 2 people for money who called me, hey sugar mama and hey little mama. I have to say, as a 31-year-old female, it does not feel safe to walk the streets of Danbury at night, especially when we have now put a police officer in the library. No, it's not a different issue, because we're walking across Library Plaza to put books in the book drop, or we're going behind on Bank Street to put books into the book drop, where nobody travels. So now we have an officer in the library several days a week. Clearly, there's a public safety concern because there's so many people in the library.
No, Mr. Chairman, that has nothing to do with, the reason the officer's there is because we had a union issue. It has nothing
Wait,
to
the
do.
union issue, I believe, has to do with how many people frequent the building.
No, it has nothing to do with that at all. It's because the union was concerned that a private security guard was taking away collective bargaining work. It had nothing to do with
Oh,
it.
so, okay, I'm sorry. So
It
say
had
we have
nothing to do with the
say we
risk
have a
assessment.
security guard. Either way,
We always have had a
a
security
city
guard.
police officer or a private security guard. Either way, we know that there are people downtown that maybe I don't want to necessarily be walking with at 9 o'clock at night, or tonight at 5:30 at night.
That's the safest city in the.
Hold on, Mr. O'Connell, this gentleman over here had his hand up, sir. You want to speak?
Yeah, my name's Tom Brown. I live at 10 Valerie Lane.
I'm sorry, your last name, could you spell it, please? I didn't hear you.
Brown, like the color.
Brown.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you.
maybe it's an expectation problem. I really expected the committee to meet and find a solution. But what I see is the committee, for the most part, with all due respect, arguing with those people who, including myself, think that the loss of the drop boxes is a major inconvenience in a quality of customer service. If the problems are kind of OSHA concern, if the problem is the books are too heavy or the boxes are too heavy, I would expect the committee to look at an engineering solution to that problem. If it's little old ladies, they have to empty it. If it's girls, they have to empty it. I mean, you can engineer the heavy lifting part out of any problem if you want to do it, if you are interested in solving the problem. And I have to, with all due respect to the mayor and the 57 employees of the library who claim that safety is the big concern, I have to ask, isn't that area, that little island with the book drops are in, that they used to be in, isn't that accessible via marked sidewalk? Isn't it? Can't you get there using the sidewalk to go across the street and the island and everything? Does anybody want to check that out?
That's right. You mean where the crosswalk is now?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but you'd have to go down and then go across and then come back up.
So the safety thing is just strictly somebody wants to take a shortcut rather than follow the crosswalk. So if safety is concerned, I think the mayor and everybody else ought to ask the police department, is it really safe to cross the streets of Danbury in a crosswalk or not? And again, I would ask the committee to look at the engineering of the whole drop box issue, whether it's too difficult to do or if it's too safe. So far, I just argued with it.
I thought we
Yes,
had
I am talking to you.
When we started the ad hoc, the director of the library came up with a solution. So I thought that we had a solution with where the drop boxes were. I thought that it would make at least half of the people happy, and we also have a permanent solution that's down the road when we have the drive-up.
So you don't have a solution, you have a response. And if I would ask you about your ultimate solution. How is that going to work physically? Is somebody going to drive up and hand the
no, I mean, you're going to have to get out of your car.
Teller?
You're going to have to get out of your car.
Oh, okay, so it's another response. It's not a solution to the drop box. I think there's valid reasons, customer service reasons, of maintaining the drive-up drop boxes. And so far, I'm really disappointed in how we're treating this, as far as investigating a true response. You're just arguing.
You know, we step back for just a second and we ask ourselves how we got here in the first place. There was a fire at the library. Anybody who had looked through the window after the fire couldn't see much damage, but apparently the damage was severe enough to actually require the disposal of almost all the materials. We really dodged a bullet on that. It was a bad fire, but it could have wiped out a lot more than it did. But that fire was caused because someone used an internal drop box. Somebody put flammable material inside the drop box that was inside the building. The flames spread from there, caused smoke and water damage to the rest of the building. It would seem to me that we learned our lesson, or we should have learned our lesson, and we responded to that by not getting rid of drop boxes, which perhaps another less enlightened community would have done. We responded to that in what I thought was a very proper way by removing the drop boxes from inside the library and putting them outside. And other communities have done that. And other communities, by the way, have had vandalism to outdoor drop boxes. One recent attack on an outdoor drop box was with a jar of condiments, and they called her the condiment killer. Some elderly woman put a jar of mayonnaise inside the drop box, where it sat over the weekend and caused a bad smell and damaged the material. But far better an outdoor vandalism attempt than an inside one. I have to wonder if we're turning the clock back by banking in 2 or 3 years of using the internal bank drop boxes for the library, because that to me says we have not really learned our lesson. We'll allow that drop box to be used on the bank side. Material will be put into that slot, and it's going to go where? Right back into the building, which is the last thing we want. So if I'm still on the council, and who knows if I will or not, I get a run for election in November, and I may get tossed out on my ear, but I may retire. I don't know. But if I am asked for my opinion in 2 or 3 or 4 years as to the validity of using an internal drop box at the library, I'm going to remind the asker of that question that, guys, look what happened the last time. 3 o'clock in the morning, you've got a huge pile of flammable material. Somebody lights it up. Smoke goes into the building, infiltrates the rest of the library. We're back to where we were. I think ideally we want to keep these drop boxes, whether we agree or not as to whether they become drive-up drop boxes. I think the writing is on the wall, and I think that we should really, really think long and hard before we internalize these drop boxes. And if we don't do that, this idea that we're going to have a drive-up drop box in just a couple of years, to me, is unrealistic.
Mr. Chairman, if I might address that. The vision is not to have a drive-up drop box on the off hours that connects directly into the library. It's to be there during the hours of operation. During the off hours, you would use the library plaza side, or you could use the other side if you want to, but only when the employees are there. Otherwise, you have to have an employee there all night long, pushing out the thing and taking the books. So we don't.
Oh, it wouldn't be a slot like a, you know.
No. It's the actual. Right, we're going to modify the actual drawer that's there.
Well, we could put a box, though. I mean, if we thought about it, if it's on the left-hand,
That's
we could
the-
put a box
that's the
at least on the
idea.
right-hand side, or another external box. You know, they have.
That's
We
the
can do
idea.
that. You know.
That is
But
the
just
idea.
let's not. Whatever we do, let's not be putting material in when the library is closed. It can potentially damage.
We agree.
Obviously, if it's only open during business hours, it begs the question of what people are going to do from their car at night, while when the library is closed.
Mr. Chairman, if I could answer Paul's concern, and it bears on what the mayor said. Right now, the current thinking, and of course it's, you know, we don't have any specific plans yet at all because we're at the very beginning of thinking about how we'll use the bank space. But we're pretty clear about having a library employee where the teller is now, for people not only to return items, but also to pick up items that are being held for them. And right now, the thought is that all three of the boxes, or at least the two that are at the Bank Street entrance, could go in the right-hand lane of the drive-up, and they'd be there for when the library is closed.
But, you know, I have to say, if you dedicate an employee to doing that, we're talking about taking what this little Dropbox thing that we're thinking about tonight, the $3,000 or $4,000, and multiplying it by a factor of 10.
Well, another part of the thinking now is that we would relocate the circulation department, the lending services area, into the bank, because you
They'd be
can't
there
have
already.
you can't have two spaces where people pick up items and return items inside. So we would relocate that department to where the drive-up window is now for the bank. And
I mean, I have to think, though, that if someone is dedicated to that window, it's going to, and we can't afford the drop boxes, there's no way we can afford that.
Well, it would be a current member of the department. We have generally 3 or 4 people at any one hour working in the lending services area. If we relocate the lending services area to that end of the bank, then just one of the people who's working at the desk now or at a self-check machine now would staff the drive-up window. I don't see that as requiring a new employee, just reassigning someone who's already in that department.
Mr. Rotella, one more time, you had your hand up?
Yeah, building on what this gentleman over here was saying about the engineering part of it, I just had an idea. You could easily put another crosswalk from the bottom of the apron of the driveway, right over to where the drop boxes would be, for one thing. And the other thing, I'm just thinking that to show respect to the 3 different cohorts for whom the drop boxes are so important to have on the side of the over to where the island is, that's really important. I mean, it's really, really important not to have it on the Library Plaza side. I can't even tell you how important that is. I don't care how many people say they've brought their kids, you know, miles and miles to get into the, to herd them into the library. This is, maybe for little kids it's fine, but it's not fine for handicapped people and the elderly. If you've been reading all the statistics, the baby boomers are getting elderly. People my age are getting even more elderly. We're handicapped like crazy. And this is not a fun thing to get out on the left-hand side. I don't want to walk into a line of traffic and traipse around the thing in the ice and the snow. I want to drive up no matter what the weather is, on the left, drop my books in, and have done with it. That's what I want. That's what people who are elderly, people who are handicapped want and deserve. This is not some great big favor you're doing us. We are the citizens. Think about us. And put a sidewalk, crosswalk in to make it safe for everybody. For heaven's sake, we deserve something. We've been paying taxes for all these years. You've got to think about us.
Mr. Hasgarl, can we put a box on Bank Street can we put a box on the sidewalk on Bank Street? So drivers
On
can
the
drive.
correct side of
Right,
Bank
on the
Street.
right side of Bank
On
Street,
the
on the
left.
library side of Bank Street, so drivers can drive up Bank Street, drop
It's
materials
one way.
off.
No,
It's
it's a
one way.
one-way street.
No, they would drive up, they would drive down to West, take a right on Main, take a right on Bank, come up as if they were parking at the library before they got there. They would put the material on the sidewalk, in the box on the sidewalk, and your employees or someone could empty with the cart without ever having to cross the street. They'd simply roll through the parking lot.
You still getting out of the car.
No, no, it would be on the sidewalk. Oh,
Bank Street instead of West Street. Much less.
if it was, yeah, never mind, thank you.
We did consider that option, and it had almost the same problems as keeping them on West Street.
I was thinking of my old Jag with right-hand drive. Sorry, Mom, I was trying to help you out.
I think, Mrs. Rotella, you should call your son, Paul, and he should return your books for you whenever you need them. Because you look like a really nice mom.
By the way, on a lighter
Can we
note,
get that in?
I heard that, I'm not paying attention to that. This is a photograph from 1950. This is Ann Arbor's drop box in 1950.
An old mailbox.
It's an old mailbox. They're sticking it
And Ann Arbor, Michigan?
60 years ago.
That's
Donated by the,
All right, one more time, ma'am.
Kiwanis.
Limited, okay.
Well, we're not gonna be here all night, we're only beating a dead
I'm-
horse right now.
I'm wondering if one of the resolutions was to put a book drop on the right-hand side of where the fork on West Street, the opposite where they were.
Way out towards the, I think the problem.
No, I'm sorry, I mean on the same side as the library.
Yeah, but towards
But where
the
there's a
sidewalk.
handicap spot there, I think, and there's several other spots. Were you making a right?
Yeah, I know, right.
Well, I'm wondering if it would go there, that seems like a likely compromise, because we're not having it all the way through the library plaza.
Library plaza.
And,
Move out closer.
well, no. Well, it would be a passenger side, but what I'm thinking is, no, that's, I mean,
Mr. Chairman, how about this? I just, this, I should say this, but if we're gonna reconfigure the parking lot for Emmanuel Lutheran School, so we can create some way, I have to go out there and look at it, where you can, the biggest issue is you gotta get out of your car, right? Okay.
Right.
So if there was a spot, and I'm not promising, but we'll go look at it with the engineers tomorrow, if there was a spot on that side of the library, where we could move it closer, where you could actually pull in, drop and go, would that work out? Would that be acceptable?
You wouldn't have to get out of your car, in other words.
it would be similar to Weston.
Where you don't get out of your car.
Where you don't get out of your car?
Right, you can do like a loop-de-loop.
Right, you pull in the parking lot, drop it off. Without,
That
the way it
seems
is
great.
now, you pull in the parking lot, get out of your car and drop it
All right,
off.
I will.
But Mayor, will we have
I-
one of the 57 employees at the library?
Well, they're already emptying those on that
They're
side.
doing it
so
now?
that- Yeah, that's not,
They'll be
that
able
won't
to
be a
get to
problem.
it?
And they won't have to
Okay.
cross the
No
street. I'll check it out and see if there's something we can figure out.
Broomfield Post Office.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, you drive the loop, that whole loop is full of
All
post
right.
office boxes.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I'm totally
Come around
digressing.
with this.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's a solution.
I'll take a look at it. I can't make any promises, but you can put that in the motion that we'll investigate. Antonio and I will take a ride out there tomorrow.
I mean, I lost my job.
Don't
Don't new car for you, Charlie. I want to volunteer for $5 grand a year.
Mayor and Tony will take a look at it.
We're going out tomorrow to look at it. I might just
Possibly
start bumping
going
on
to
our list.
the school parking lot.
That makes a lot of sense.
The driver's side.
What
Mayor and
recommendation
Tony.
is?
Director of.
Just to direct me to go, and then the Director of Public Works to go figure this out.
Explore an alternate location for a drive-up.
On that side.
Or the possibility of putting the box in the
Explore
school parking lot.
Possibility,
Or explore alternate
an
locations.
alternate.
No promises, I'm gonna try.
Alternate
For a
location.
drive-up.
Sorry, did you say you were?
In addition to,
I
now,
think
didn't they already, don't they have something in place right now that we're using?
I'm just gonna
Oh,
relocate
there's
that
three
box,
boxes.
Relocate.
Oh, right. Yeah, yeah.
but it'll stay on the same side of the building.
So will we have to have another meeting after?
No, just tell me to do it, I'll figure it out.
All right, I'd like to, without objection, I would like to make a motion to ask the mayor and the director of public works to
Yeah.
explore the possibility of an alternate location
For drive-up.
for drive-up drop boxes.
Second.
All those in favor?
Can't go in.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Open for adjournment.
Thanks for handing me
So
the
moved.
monkey.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming, everybody.